It doesn't mean that I'm not bigger than your situation. Because I can step in your situation and while you're still broken, still bless you in your brokenness. And so, guys, that's the place that people need to be sometimes to say, I can be blessed in my brokenness. I can be blessed beyond my belief. I can just be blessed and still have to go through life. But guess what? I'm still blessed anyway. But sometimes life gets so hard that we think, man, you know what? God doesn't care. God doesn't love me. God doesn't need me. And so then we fall back. I've been through that. Well, I just thought, man, you know what, okay, even in ministry, you know what, I'll just fall back. I'll just do something, do this little stuff here, and I'll be okay. But God says, no, that's not showing my agape love. I need you to go deeper. I need you really to love people who don't look like you, don't smell like you, don't sound like you, don't come from the same area you come from, wherever you are. I need you to go there, because now that's the next level. Now the kingdom can really be benefited. But we get hurt by life that we fall back away from God. And God says, don't get hurt by life and you fall away from me. Get hurt by life and fall into me. And that's where we have to be. That's how we go to the next level, when we get hurt and get pushed into God and not pushed away from God.
Welcome to Just Men, a life-changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I am your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome James Trotter III. Brother James, welcome to Just Men.
Thanks for having me. Excited about it.
Oh,
Thanks
man.
for having me. Thanks.
I tell you, on the onset, you add value to our program, and we just want to thank you. We're grateful for your presence and for you to share and enlighten us with the word and the power of God in your life, man.
Yes, sir.
So just share just briefly a quick bio on who is James Trotter III.
Yes, sir. Well, as I stand now, proud father, husband, three kids, 2 girls and a little boy, proud husband of my wife, who I'm love. Native of Nashville, Tennessee, born and raised here, went to White Creek High School, went off to Tuskegee University. While I finished Tuskegee University, I came home and tried to negotiate with God and told God I wasn't going to get in ministry, I wasn't going to do anything He was telling me to do. So I negotiated. I went to grad school at Strayer and still negotiated with God. Still told God what I wasn't going to do. And finally, I realized I wasn't a good negotiator. So God won that battle. I went to American Baptist College to get a degree in theology and just start trying to really learn what God was calling me to do. So now, as I stand, a man of God, proud man of God, ready to do what God has called me to do.
Wow, that's beautiful,
Yeah.
man. But man, you got a wealth of education and this process of negotiation. So I really want to dive into your life and your story, but I want to start with the family, man, and start with the core of you building this relationship with God, but indirectly through relationship. Talk a little bit about your family and talk about how you modeled it and how they shaped you to be this man that we sit and I hear now about God.
Well, if it weren't for my family, I wouldn't be the man I am. I would still be the boy wandering around in the world. My family have supported me. They've made me stronger. They made me become a man. My kids are the reason why I'm able to get up every morning and say, I have a reason to get up. They force me to be better. You know, I have a son, and you know, in society now, you want to be that inspiration for your son because they can walk outside and get any kind of inspiration. And so for me, that's a part of something. I want to be better because of him, because I want him to see a positive role model. I want him to see what a true man is, what a real man is, how a real man conducts his home life. So when I'm at home, my wife gives me that opportunity, and she understands, and she opens the way. And doesn't, you know, and leaves me an opportunity to say he's the man. And I love it because that's, you know, she understands her role and I understand my role. And we're able to show the kids what the family circle is all about. And so that's where I am with my family and how they've empowered me and the structure we have. And it's great. You know, the kids see what dad is and who dad is. They see me sometimes in my flaws. I don't try to hide all my flaws from them. They see me when I get upset. They see me when I'm excited. So I think that's the lifeline of how I can really show my kids what the family is all about and what a man is all about. And so that's been the joy of it for me. That's been the joy of it for me.
That's beautiful. Talk to me about the transformation process. You talked about, or you shared a little bit about your wife giving you that platform to be a man. Share with me how that came about and how was you able to cultivate that kind of environment with your wife to where you're in agreement for you to be the man of God. What did you show or what did you had to work on so that she would give you that kind of sanctioning to
Yes.
say, yes,
Yes.
you can be the man of God. Talk about
And some people would even think, what do you mean she gave it to you? And it'll throw somebody off. But because women are they naturally step out there. If you give them the opportunity, they're going to lead and go. And so, but for me, she understood that as a man, I have to be the head of my household. I have to be the leader. And so it was just given the opportunity to say, now we're married, we're one union. This is how God has set it up. And so we even had the conversation with our kids and made it understood that this is how it's set up biblically. This is how it's set up for daddy to be the head of the house. This is how it's set up for mommy not to stand behind him, but to stand beside him in support. And so we've had those conversations, and I think what made it great in our marriage is to have those real conversations. And so when I say she gave she gave me an opportunity to be vulnerable when I need to be vulnerable. She gave me an opportunity to speak out how I need to speak out. And then when I need her to help, she's there to help me. And so that's how she gives me that platform. That's how she empowers me and not take me down a notch. She empowers me to be the man that I am called to be, and the man that I want my daughters to see, and the man I want my son to see. Because when it comes to raising a family, your daughters are going to begin relationships with men a lot of times who are like their fathers. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be that example. And so me and my wife have real conversations about our life and the life we want to have for our kids. And so that's kind of how she's given me that platform and gave me opportunity to be the man and not just try to overshadow me and be more. But she's done that for me, and I love her for it.
Wow, that's beautiful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Share with me a little bit of some of those kind of conversations, because a lot of times, we're on the surface when we start talking about having a conversation. Mm-hmm. But what are some of the most recent or most pivotal conversations you had to have with your family that was transforming in so many ways, and you really got a breakthrough and you start seeing that the fruit of that conversation, the fruit of that communication? Is there anything that resonates more here recently or any time during this course of cultivating your family so that they represent, the ideal or the model family that God has designed?
Yeah. So my kids are involved in sports. So my son, he's in football. My daughter, my youngest is cheer. Oldest, she plays basketball. And so what we have done is we've set them up to let them understand that when there's a problem, you can always go to daddy and let daddy figure out and let daddy work it out, and not always have to run off and try to do it yourself. And so we've had those conversations with my son to say, this is how you handle yourself, this is how you do certain things, this is how you carry yourself. And so me and my wife we've sat down with him, and I'll speak on him because I have a heart for the young men in our community now, so I'll speak a lot about my son. But we've had conversations with him to say, this is what we're doing. We're setting you up for success. We're setting you up for success. We're not going to put you in a position, even when it comes to sports, to fail. I'm going to put you around people who are going to only want your best interests. And so for me, that's my role, to put him in a position, my kids and my wife in a position for success. And so me and my wife had to have conversations about where do we want them to go to school? Where do we want them to be involved in sports? Church. The church we're at now, we had to have conversations about that. And we had to really talk with each other. In marriages, that's the big key. You can be married to someone and not really talk to them. You could just go through the motions. But you have to, if you really want your family structure to be about something and be about something that's going to be lasting longer than 2 days, you have to have those conversations about every process and every step of where you are. And we have those conversations on a regular basis, all the way down to how we discipline the child. My wife would call and say, one of them got in trouble, but she'll say, I got this one. And that's just that simple to say, I got it. You don't have to worry about it, knowing that you can, but I got this one. And those conversations help us because the kids they know, okay, my parents love me. And it's not always one is against me, one is for me, but it's a love thing. So yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
What standard do you use when you start talking about all these relationships that you're teaching your children as well as your wife that you set? In other words, what standard or litmus test do you use in terms of sports that they select, the coaches that you want around them? What standard do you use in terms of church or ministry? What is the standard that you're teaching so that they'll use that standard in all relationships, not just the standard in the circumstances that we talk about?
So we constantly tell them we put them around people that we trust. We've told my daughter from the moment she went into school that we select your friends. You don't have friends unless we say you have friends, right? And so the standard is saying, okay, we're going to show you, put you around people that only want the best for you. We're going to do that for you so that when they meet the people that we put them around, they already know, well, mom and daddy, they know these people. And so these people must be good people. And so we let them know all the time, we're only going to put you around people who want the best for you. So in their minds, my prayer is in their minds, they get older, they'll say, this is how I'm supposed to do it. I'm supposed to put my family around people and only around people who love them. Only around people who are going to care for them, because that's what we've done. I only put them around people that I trust and know. When I get ready to put my son in football, I had coaches that I knew, that I grew up with, that I didn't play for, but I knew them. And I called them and I talked to them and said, I'm going to bring my son to you. Here's what here he is. And that's how we did it, because I wanted them to understand I'm only going to put the right people around my family. And so hopefully I pray that my kids see that and they say, okay, that's how mom and daddy did it. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm only going to put people around my kids that I can trust.
Wow, that's beautiful, man. I mean, how many families and how many relationships where people don't engage themselves first to be the screening, the litmus test, the testing ground before they bring, their prize and joy to the surface or to the presence of these individuals. And what happened many times, abuse and neglect, those kind of things that happen outside of our protection zone, because we haven't tested the battlefield ourselves. We haven't went on and won the battle, ourselves before we bring, our kids or anyone else into that relationship. You mentioned something that I really want to kind of start expanding your circle.
Okay.
So we started with the family. Let's talk about community. You're talking about you have a heart for young men and maybe the state of what you see young men going through. Talk a bit about how you feel that you can have an impact or have had an impact on the direction of those who are not under your roof, those that are not in your control in your house. How do you do that? How do you have that?
It's all about how you carry, go back to how you carry yourself. I really try, when Paul talks to Timothy about how a deacon is supposed to be, in my mind, I think that's how a man in general should be. And so I want to be that. I want to be the one who says, I carry myself this way. And so if a young man sees me, anywhere they see me, I want them to see me and say, that's something about him. I want to carry myself like that. That's how I expect when I walk out of my house, I expect to look a certain way. I expect to walk a certain way. I expect a certain response from people when I walk past them, because how I carry myself. And so hopefully if it's a young man somewhere near me, and if I'm sitting down at a basketball game or out with my kids, they see that. And just seeing that example, maybe it helps them somewhere else. Maybe it helps them a little along the way. I've done years ago, I did some volunteering inside of school, and I love doing that. I love the opportunity to do that, where we would have a classroom full of little boys, and we just talk to them about making the right decisions and how to get past it if you don't make the right decision. Here's what you do now that you made the wrong decision. Here's what you do. And so just having those conversations with the kids and letting them know everything's not going to be perfect, but hey, you can still get okay. You can still make it okay. And that's where it is. I think that's the biggest impact, is just being an example for somebody. Let them see how you are. Even if I don't get to talk to you, at least see me, and you may know, okay, there's something about him. I hope that I carry myself that way where somebody sees that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I got to dive into this negotiation process with God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Share with me that process and the rewards of you finally surrendering and what God is leading you now, man.
So for me, when you hear a lot of ministers say, well, I ran from my calling. And I always say, well, I never really ran. I negotiated. I understood that I had a calling early on in my life, maybe during my high school years. I really became stronger when I was in college, when I was in Tuskegee. And I remember sitting in my dorm room. I remember sitting in my apartment saying, God, if I get through next year, okay, I made it through that year. God, after graduation, after graduation, God, I think I get it together. And after graduation, I got home and, all right, God, I just need about 2 years, and I'm gonna figure it out, And at some point, God's like, I gave you, 7, 8 years, and how long do you want? And so I remember finally releasing, finally saying, okay, God, here I am. I can't run anymore. I can't negotiate anymore. I remember the night just as clear as day, where just tears run down my face. I couldn't understand why I'm crying. And it was me really saying, okay, I'm done. I want to do something greater than what I'm doing. I want to live for something greater than what I'm doing. And so you talk about the reward. The reward was not having that burden on my shoulder any longer. I didn't have to carry that 10-pound weight anymore, that 100-pound weight anymore. I can just, be free now. And so that negotiation process came to a screeching halt because I said, okay, I'm done. And then he moved me to the next phase where I was already in church. And so just started working in ministry. My father in ministry kind of just made me kind of watch and listen and learn, and kind of guided me along slowly. He used to always tell us, grow slow. And so that was the big thing for me. So now in ministry, praying through, seeing what the next phase is that God has for me, and anticipating the next wave. Yeah. So, but the negotiation process was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you relate to people now that you've had this experience and walk with God, even in the negotiation process and even in the capacity that you serve now? How are you effective, and how do you reach people now, and what words resonate in your heart when it comes to those that may or have some of the same characteristics and qualities that you had that were running or negotiating? How do you connect with them, man?
So the best thing to do is be available and vulnerable. To be available and vulnerable at all times. When I've negotiated, I've counseled people. And what I've had to understand is I had to allow myself to be shown a little bit. I shouldn't have my shell on the whole time. I had to open myself up for them to open themselves up. So I relate to them by just being me and showing them my wounds. Here's the scar, here's the battle scar. Here's where I fell down, but here's the spot where God picked me up. And so all of those ways, just letting them know, my faults, my flaws, and then saying, this is what God can do after he picks you back up. After God picks you back up, this is the next step. And so I believe really just letting people know who you are, being vulnerable to them and available if they need you, really lets people get inside inside the wavelength where you are and get you moving in the right direction. And now you can really touch their life. But if I'm just closed in, I'll never touch you. I'll never touch you. You'll never get to understand what you're supposed to do if I'm just closed in. I'm just giving you going at you. But if I open up, now we can have a real relationship. But you can't build it if I'm closed up. So I try, for those who I try to talk to, counsel, help, I give a little piece of me. I show them a little piece of me, so that hopefully it helps them open up later on.
Wow, that's beautiful. I know many times when I have ministers on the program, and I ask them about how do they keep the balance, right? The balance between family, church, their profession, that brings the livelihood in their lives as well, not just their occupation, but their profession as well, and just the relationship with God and everything else. How do they do that and still become viable and effective in every area? How do you do that? How do you find yourself to be effective, or as even more effective, in your home, in your ministry, and as well as your occupation, and as well as in the community?
For me, it was the longest road ever. The longest road traveled. I had to learn the hard way that my family is my first pastor. I would hear my wife even would tell me, your family's your first pastor. And I'm like, I know, but right. And I had to learn that the harder way. And it was through many long, dark nights trying to figure it out. But that balance finally came when I realized I wasn't God. I don't have the power to do it all. I don't have the power to be in every place at every time. But what I can do is exactly what God called me to do for that moment. So wherever I'm supposed to be, I'm doing that. And then I make sure I make time for my family. Because a lot of times you can get caught up in ministry. Ministry will allow you to get caught up in it because it's so overwhelming. But I had to learn how to make time. I had to stop. I would have to cut off and stop studying some nights just so I can go lay down next to my wife because I haven't laid down next to her for 3 days. Wow. And I was like, what? I can stop studying tonight, and I can go in the room and lay down and just watch TV, or I can say no to an event so I can go be with my kids. And so that balance, I had to force myself. And a lot of times I think that's the hardest thing to do, is to force yourself to make yourself believe that everybody else can wait. My family needs me. And once you can realize that, then you can get that balance. Even in my job, your job can take all of your time. And so then you're trying to battle work, family, ministry, and you got all these requirements on all of them. But then you have to understand, it's almost like juggling. Where one is in the air, you taking care of these other ones, and that one's going to come down. Well, let me throw this one up before the other one drops. And it's juggling, but these two that you have in your hand, you're taking care of them. And so the one is in the air, it's not just dangling, but it's getting ready to come down. So I'm going to catch it. I'm going to get the next one. And you just work it out where you just continue to move around, and hopefully, and that balance just kind of gets there. Some days it gets a little heavier on one side than the other, but you'll find the more you work at it, it gets a whole lot easier.
Wow,
yeah.
Man, that's beautiful. Share with me what God's been placing in your heart as you've been meditating and you're through negotiating, and you've fully surrendered to God, and God is moving in your life, and obviously God speaks, and He's moving you in a direction. What has God been placing in your heart? Just the state of life, state in general, state of the church, the state of the family. I mean, share with me.
For me, I think God has been really showing and saying, okay, next level. And next level, not just on the simplest form of, okay, what are you going to do next? But next level in our communities, how can we help our children go to the next level, be it school, be it spiritual, be it economically, be it socially? How do we do that? How do I take my family to the next level so they understand what this world is all about? So my kids will understand there are levels to where you want to go. You can't just jump out and make it happen. For me, God, so that's really God is showing me, okay, it's time for you to begin to figure out how can you make an impact and begin to take things to the next level. And so that's what I've really been praying through, trying to understand, okay, God, how do I do that? How do I now help somebody in certain situations? How do I teach? How do I preach? How do I reach on a whole nother level than I've ever done before? And that's been my struggle, because it's easy to kind of shy away from it. I say, oh, I can do this. I got this part done. I can do this. But God says, well, but you don't get anything if you're just comfortable. Sometimes you got to step out of your comfort zone. But for me to get out of the comfort zone, only way for me to get to the next level is I got to step out of my comfort zone. I stayed in my comfort zone for so long, now we said, okay, I'm going to shake some things up. I'm going to do something different. And He's been doing it. God has been really doing it, showing Himself mighty in my life. But I have to get out of my comfort zone. And for me to take myself to the next level, and then praying that He puts me in a position to take communities to the next level, take His people to the next level. For it does me no good just to say I'm going to the next level, and then when He calls me to a church, and I'm just kind of like, well, I'm good, you all, thank you. But no, I got to be able to take His people to the next level. I got to be able to show them something beyond the usual. It's beyond just something small. But God says, you don't think so small. How big can you get? How big impact can you have on a kingdom from where we stand?
Wow.
Yeah.
Have we grown complacent in our levels? And you start talking about another level or a deeper level in God. And I know Paul talks a lot about that in Ephesians, about being rooted and grounded in God's love, and that we can comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth, the length, the depth, the height, and to know the love of God that passes all understanding. So he says that the love we have is not many times reflective of God's love, the agape love, the unconditional love. So he says go deeper. And I know back in those time, people were so moved by the rhetoric. So Paul says, though I speak with the tongues of angels and have not love. In other words, you still got to go deeper. You become a sounding brass and a tingling cymbal. And then he says, well, though you have the faith to move mountains, you still got to go deeper. You know, so there's always another level, but many times the other level represent the shallowness of the level that we're in. So God placing it in your heart, is there a state that God is sharing with you that people have become complacent about or settled with, that is really not God's best and is not where God wants to take them? Therefore, people are leaving the church or leaving the relationship with God because they are discontent. And you and I know that anytime you had a real encounter with God, there ain't no discontentment. He fills all the cup, brother. He don't leave nothing left, brother. He fills it up. And Paul says he was trying to apprehend what had grabbed hold of him. He's trying to apprehend this thing that God has. So I know that many times people haven't experienced God in His fullness from that standpoint. So, but what are you, in your time and spending with God, what is God sharing with you on this, why we need to go to the next level? What is it about our level that is insufficient?
I think at some point people may have not fallen out of love with God, but I think what happens is they believe because of their inadequacies, God doesn't love them. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is Mephibosheth, and how God blessed him and he still remained lame. I love that story because it shows that, you know what, no matter my physical condition, God can still bless me. He was still blessed to sit at the table. Had everything, all the spoils that the king told him. He can have everything. He had all the spoils, but he still was broken. His legs were still broken. Sometimes we think because of our circumstances that we're stuck. And so because I'm stuck, I'm just going to stay here. But God says, no, I need you to, even if you are in a situation, that doesn't mean that I'm not bigger than your situation. God said, I can step in your situation and while you're still broken, still bless you in your brokenness. And so God says, that's the place that people need to be sometimes, to say, I can be blessed in my brokenness. I can be blessed beyond my belief. I can just be blessed and still have to go through life, but guess what? I'm still blessed anyway. But sometimes life gets so hard that we think, man, you know what? God doesn't care. God doesn't love me. God doesn't need me. And so then we fall back. I've been through that. Well, I just thought, man, you know what? Okay, even in ministry, you know what? I'll just fall back. I'll just do something, do this little stuff here, and I'll be okay. But God says, no, that's not showing my agape love. I need you to go deeper. I need you really to love people who don't look like you, don't smell like you, don't sound like you, don't come from the same area you come from, or wherever you are. I need you to go there, because now that's the next level. Now I can really, now the kingdom can really be benefited. But we get hurt by life that we fall back away from God. And God says, don't get hurt by life and you fall away from me. Get hurt by life and fall into me. And that's where we have to be. That's how we go to the next level, when we get hurt and get pushed into God and not pushed away from God.
Wow, brother, you're blessed me, man. I mean, when you start talking about brokenness, I know the power of brokenness. In fact, I know the story, I think it's Luke 24, where when the two were walking and Jesus, of course, had resurrected. This is the third day after his resurrection. And they constrained Jesus to come and sup with them. And the word says that Jesus took the bread and he blessed it and he broke it and he gave it. And then the word says their eyes were open. Their eyes were open through the brokenness. Jesus was taking the bread, but Jesus was saying, I am the bread that has been broken for you. And awake to me, and then you will see all that labor and heavy laden. He says, come unto me and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for my yoke is easy. My burdens are light, man. And so their eyes became open through the breaking. And like you and I, when there was a state in our life where we became broken, that our eyes were open. And then we were like, they're like, did not he talk with us in a way, and did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us in a way, and while he opened up the scriptures? And so when we open up the scripture through a broken state of mind, man, our heart will yearn and burn for God, and we'll be filled and be full in him, man. Brother, you've blessed me. Last word of encouragement, man.
Just know that God's got something better. You know, your current situation is not your final destination, but God has something better. I truly believe that. I truly believe that God has something better than where I am, because I know God's going to take me beyond it. And so I get excited about knowing what God can do, and I hope others can begin to get excited about what I know God can do in their life as well.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
Man,
thanks.
Awesome. Man.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Gotta have you back on, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Man, I mean, man, your spirit, I can connect with it, brother. I can connect with your spirit, man.
I'm excited about it.